Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the delay. We had a closed session that's still going on, but I didn't want to keep you waiting, so thank you again. My name is Adel Haj Khalil, Adelhagekhalil. I'm the general manager for Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. Thank you again and welcome. And thank you for joining us today as we announce an important action by our board to help safeguard Southern California water supplies for all of us. Our board chair, Gloria Gray, really wanted to be with you today, but she could not be with us here due to a family emergency. With the extreme drought straining both of our imported water sources, the Colorado River and Northern Sierras, today we officially, at Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, officially declared a water supply alert over our 5,200 square miles of our service area. This action is significant. As Southern California primary importer of water and regional planner, it's our responsibility to ensure our residents and businesses always have safe and reliable water no matter what we're facing, including this historic drought conditions. By declaring a water supply alert, we're sending a signal to our 19 million customers in our region, in the 6 counties that we serve, that it's time to elevate our response to the crisis. We must take action now to preserve the water we have in storage, that we can be prepared for this drought to continue. We must support our governor's call for Californians to voluntarily cut their water use by 15%. Although we can hope for a wetter year next year, we must be ready because it's going to be dry probably again, it's going to be hot again, and possibly we're going to be facing the same issue the next year and the year after. The reality is we don't know how long this will last, so we have to prepare. Every drop we save today is a drop that can be used tomorrow. We will need every drop if these conditions continue. The water supply alert is the third of 4 conditions in Metropolitan's framework that shows the urgency that we need to respond to. This action calls for water agencies and consumers to reduce their water demand through public awareness campaigns and other locally driven actions. Southern Californians have always stepped up. They've stepped up time and time again to contribute and help us through droughts. And that water-saving ethic has endured us since our last drought. Together with the region's investments in our water storage infrastructure, the public's commitment to conservation allowed us to begin this current drought with a high level of water in our storage system. That storage is critical as we manage through this challenge. So I want to thank all of you, all of Southern Californians across our state, across our region, for the great work they've done. It's because of you that we are in this good position today, despite of these extreme conditions that are threatening our water resources. Now we're asking you, once again, to look for ways that you can conserve even more. This is the basis of our latest public outreach campaign, which recognizes that drought is part of the fabric of Southern California, just like its diverse cultures and identities. You see on the displays here everywhere that we have, there's a campaign that we're going to use imagery of uniquely Californian themes, including its historic iconic infrastructure, entertainment industry, and surfing culture, as we celebrate our diversity, our identities, and our experience in responding to this drought. Our campaign encourages the public to visit our website at bewaterwise.com, our water saving portal, to access simple, everyday tips on how to save water. This website will also feature rebates for household devices like high-efficiency clothes washers that use less water, as well as for converting lawns into more sustainable, water-saving, California-friendly, and native plant gardens. We all need to take this immediate action to lower our water use. Each one of us can do something, so do one thing today. Today, cut down your water use. Cut down your water use by in watering your lawn by 1 day a week, maybe 2 days a week. Take showers and have less time in the shower. If you have a leaky faucet, if you have a leaky toilet, fix it now. We give rebates for replacing toilets. We give rebates for replacing your lawn. Take advantage of it. Whatever it takes, let's just do it together. We also need to make this permanent lifestyle changes that can build greater water efficiency into our lives long term. The climate change is not going away. Climate change is here, and we need to adapt to it. And I'm sure people in Southern California are ready for this challenge. There is something everyone can do to use less water, and I appreciate everyone's pitching in. We, as water providers, need to pitch in as well, and we have to think even bigger. Just like we're asking the public to make short-term changes and long-term investments, Metropolitan is doing the same. We'll get through this drought working together, but we also must look beyond the immediate challenge. Today's drought conditions are a wake-up call. They're a wake-up call for all of us. Climate change is permanently changing conditions for our imported supplies and some of our local groundwater supplies. We need to prepare for less imported water, permanently lower demands, and develop more local water supplies. Recycle more. Fit all these pieces together: conservation, recycling, groundwater remediation. All these come together as part of what I call one water, the one water solution, the water we need for our future. A big key to climate change is recycled water. And we are looking at moving forward and expediting our efforts to recycle more. 90% of the water in the wastewater system is going to the ocean, and we need to reverse that. And that's something we're going to be working hard on, and this is a new sustainable supply. We can and should recycle it. And that's why Metropolitan is planning to do that in partnership with LA County Sanitation Districts, the City of Los Angeles, and other member agencies that have done a lot of work in Orange County and San Diego. We're all going to be recycling more, investing more in recycled water, in storage, and remediating our groundwater, because we want to bring all these sources of water locally to manage this change. But we can get through this together. I'm optimistic with the ethic and the hard commitment of our residents across our counties. We can do this. But want to assure you, we're going to be working hard. With the investments of money we're seeing in DC and Sacramento, we're going to be investing more in our infrastructure. This is important, and this is critical. So let me pass this on to our Chief Operating Officer, Devin Aparahe, to share a little bit more about what we're facing and what we're doing about it. Devin?
Thank you, Adele, and good afternoon, everyone. We can't overstate the seriousness of this drought. Conditions are getting worse, and more importantly, we don't know how long it'll last. Southern California imports about half of the water that we use here from two sources, from the Northern Sierras and from the Colorado River. We often find ourselves in a situation where one watershed might have challenges, but the other watershed is okay. That's not the case with this current drought. Reservoirs on both systems are actually dropping to record lows. On the State Water Project earlier this month, Lake Oroville hit the lowest level that it's been at since 1977. And in June, Lake Mead, our biggest storage reservoir on the Colorado River system, hit the lowest level since it was initially filled in the 1930s. And the reservoirs are continuing to drop. It's hot, it's dry. In Northern Sierras, the snowpack this year was about 70% of normal. Runoff, however, was only about 40% of normal. And similarly, on the Colorado River, the snowpack was almost 90% of normal this year, but we only got about 30% of the expected runoff. We've actually never seen anything like this before. As General Manager Haj Khalil said, this is a wake-up call for what lies ahead. This is climate change. We have a 5% State Water Project allocation this year. To give you a sense, That's equivalent to getting 1 month of the normal supply that we get from that system and having to use it across the whole year. 50 of California's 58 counties are currently in a drought emergency. But Southern California isn't. Because of our investments and the conservation that the Southern California public has made. However, we are one state, and we aren't immune to what is happening with the rest of California. We saw the shortage declaration on the Colorado River yesterday, and California isn't immediately affected by that, but it is a stark reminder of the severity of the conditions on the Colorado River. Looking to next year, the outlook on both supplies isn't good. Turns out that higher temperatures are evaporating snow and thirstier soils are soaking runoff up before it gets into the reservoirs. That means that next year, state officials are telling us that you would have to have a wet year just to get the normal supplies that we would typically expect, maybe even as much as 40% above normal to get your typical supplies. We're also anticipating that we could start the year off with a 0 allocation on the State Water Project. So what does this all mean? You've already heard, we do need people to save water. And as General Manager Hodge Khalil has said, Southern Californians have already done a fantastic job of lowering their water use. And that's been critical in helping us manage through the drought thus far. But we do need to do more. Install a smart meter to detect leaks at your house, or a smart sprinkler controller. Make sure you never overwater. And you can do both of those things by utilizing rebates that we provide at bewaterwise.com. You've already heard it a few times today, and you'll be hearing it a lot more. This water supply alert sounds the start of a unified message across our region. And you'll see more actions that are specific to different communities. Each water agency has what is known as a water shortage contingency plan in place. Those plans identify the actions necessary for a local jurisdiction to achieve conservation through these drought conditions. Part of our water supply alert asks water agencies in our service area to look at their respective water shortage contingency plans and use the appropriate actions according to their local conditions to achieve a response from consumers throughout our service area. So some agencies might identify restrictions on outdoor watering or irrigating. Some may choose to add funding to the rebates that we already offer to help consumers make changes, and others may increase their messaging through community organizations and events. And while we're all working hard to do our individual parts, Metropolitan will be doing its part to continue its smart planning and critical investments to ensure California has the water it needs for generations to come. For example, Metropolitan is developing what will be one of the largest wastewater purification facilities in the nation in partnership with the Los Angeles County Sanitation District. It will be a new drought-proof supply for Southern California, precisely the kind of source that we'll need as climate change continues. The Regional Recycle Water Program, as we call it, is also an example of collaboration and partnership that we increasingly need to develop across the Southwest. Our counterparts in Nevada and Arizona are interested in working with us to develop the project because they recognize that bringing the Colorado River back into balance will take both lowering demand and developing new supplies. The bottom line is we support the governor's call for voluntary conservation. We all need to work together, and I encourage our consumers to look into the rebates that we have available on bewaterwise.com. Thank you. Devin Upadhyay, D-E-V-E-N, U-P-A-D-H-Y-A-Y.
So we'll take some questions. You want to handle it, the questions?
You said, Devin, I think, we've never seen anything like this. This is climate change. 2014 to 2016. This is worse than that? And why is this voluntary if it is worse than that?
Sure, it's a great question. So in the 2014 to 2016 period, we saw particularly poor conditions on the State Water Project. You might remember that in 2015, we received a 5% allocation on the State Water Project, which is similar to this year. But one of the things that's significantly different is you see the first ever declaration of a shortage on the Colorado River just yesterday. And that's the first that we've seen there. We haven't seen both watersheds in that kind of a state before. Coming into this, we did have relatively high storage reserves, and that's part of why we're able to manage through the first couple years of this drought quite successfully. But the reason we're taking this action today is you don't know how long something like this will last. So we do want to ramp up the messaging, issue the alert, get the attention of the public focused on this, and hopefully that allows us to avoid the mandatory restrictions in the future as we get that kind of a response and are able to continue to rely on the storage reserves we do have.
Are you saying this drought really began in 2019?
If you take a look at the State Water Project and the 20% allocation we received last year, it, by historic perspectives, is one of the lower allocations we've seen. So yes, we saw very low supplies from the State Water Project last year, and that's continued and worsened this year.
So 2019 or 2020, what year would you say that this current drought actually started?
2020, I think, is the beginning. 2019 was a relatively wet year.
Who's the biggest water user? What groups are the biggest water users?
In our region or across California?
Our region.
So the question is, where is our largest water users in our region? You want to just try to look into it, Devin?
Sure. Sure, we can talk a little bit later or get information to you about the specific users that are the largest, but in terms of the general class, it's still outdoor water use. We've made major headways in terms of indoor water use in the state of California with regulations that increase the efficiency of indoor devices. We encourage people to continue to look at rebates for those if they haven't changed their devices out. But starting with the last drought, we really focused on outdoor water use, particularly in Southern California, converting turf landscape to drought-tolerant landscape, trying to focus on ornamental or turf areas that aren't used regularly and changing those out. And that continues to be an area of key focus for us.
Are you saying residential outdoor water use is more significant than what businesses are using?
I'm referring to outdoor water use in general. So if we're able to focus on institutions and commercial applications where you don't have people using the turf on a regular basis, maybe those are opportunities to change that turf to drought-tolerant landscaping or California-friendly landscaping. But we'd also like residents in the area, to the extent that they're not using their turf on a regular basis, they see what some of their neighbors have done that really have beautiful California-friendly landscapes that use a lot less water, to look at that as an option. And in fact, we're willing to help pay for that with rebates that we have through bewaterwise.com so that residents can make that transition, but we'll also help them afford it.
But what are you talking about with businesses, like golf courses or like outdoor landscaping and properties? Is that, or give us some specifics.
Sure, so it's a great question. When you are driving down the road and you see the medians that you might pass, and many times those medians might have drought-tolerant landscape, but there are still some out there that have turf. And typically we don't want our kids playing in the middle of a median, so they're not really turf that's used very often. That's a sweet spot. There are commercial landscapes that still have turf that we can take a look at. And like I'd mentioned, we're willing to help pay for those transitions. The other thing is beyond just changing the turf out, it's watering what you do have efficiently. So we have sprinklers, we have smart timers that help people apply the water that is needed for the particular landscape that they have. Now's the time, even if you don't want to make the changes to your landscape itself, now would be the time for you to go out and take a look at your sprinkler or irrigation systems and make sure you're irrigating the plants and not the the sidewalk. Those kinds of changes are very, very low cost, but they can result in nice savings.
What would it take to reach a stage 4 level of your alert? Is that the same as the restrictions that we saw in 2015? And how far are we away from that?
I would say the way we are looking at it is the good thing is we've invested in a lot of storage. And over the last few years, many years, we've actually beefed up our storage in Lake Mead, in Diamond Valley Lake in Hemet, and that's really what's helping us address what we're looking at today. So I would say we're watching what's happening both in the northern Sierras and also in the Colorado. We probably, it's going to be, if this continues, probably in the next couple of years, we may go to the next level of allocations. However, what we're looking for is how we can now think and start looking at ways to manage water and how we store. Right now, every drop that we can save, we can store, and we want to store it for tomorrow so we can use it. What's saving us today is the storage we've invested in. We have Diamond Valley Lake in Hemet that we built, Metropolitan has built as a region, and that's larger than Lake Havasu. And we built it, and that's what's really helping us right now, provide that resiliency, but also what we invested over time as we were conserving here and partnering with our partners in the agriculture community, we're able to beef up our storage in Lake Mead. And that's an important thing we've done. So we're gonna be working on every front. I know the city of Los Angeles, for example, with Measure W, is investing in stormwater capture and recharge. We're investing in recycled water across our region, and whether it's San Diego, Orange County. So we are going to continue looking for ways to clean up the groundwater, to reuse it. We're going to be looking for investments to make that. So we're starting as part of our effort to conserve, but also look for more local water supplies that can help us and more storage.
Correctly, that's 2 successive years, like the years we've been having, might reach us to the next point, but that might be alleviated by the water steps you mentioned.
We're going to be monitoring and measuring and working with our partners, both in the Colorado and in the state. Our staff are working hard and looking at ways and projecting and modeling. We're looking right now, probably if this continues the way it is, it's a couple of years away, 2 to 3 years away. But the planning for a drought does not start right now. I mean, the planning should be a continuous effort. We have not stopped planning. We are continuing to work. What this today is a reminder to everyone. The ethics that you've implemented back in 15 and 16 that helped us reduce our water consumption, we're asking you to do something more. Do it now. Help us. We're going to be doing our part, but we're asking every person in our region in Southern California, help us. We all can help each other. Let's do our part. Do one thing. Ask everyone today, do one thing that can help reduce your water consumption.
The next level of allocation look different from this call for what's essentially a voluntary allocation.
So it's actually a lot more stringent. This is a kind of a warning and conservation. The other one will be really talking about cuts, which is a lot more drastic. And there's different levels in that effort. I don't know, Devin, you want to talk about it?
Sure. The question was about how water supply allocation at the next level for us would be different than the water supply alert that our board implemented today. The water supply alert really is about messaging and ratcheting up the messaging about our water supply condition, calling for voluntary actions. Our water supply allocation is the next step and the final step for us. If we got to that level, that would implement additional rates that our member agencies would face for taking water amounts above a certain level. Our board would have to consider what that level was at that time. But it's, as the general manager has stated, it's a more stringent regime that would come with higher charges in order to encourage use only within certain amounts. That's not what was taken today. Today was voluntary only. That's correct, yes. It's a mandatory regime.
We've seen some interesting projects involving sulfur, with the side down in Carlsbad and other areas like that. Hey, Are you doing anything with regard to ocean water and trying to make that a useful resource? And the other question I want to ask, and this should be fairly obvious, but I mean, this is voluntary. And because it's voluntary, people are being hit with so much right now, with COVID, with vaccinations, with this, with that. And it's almost like, here comes another one. And so there are going to be people that might say to themselves, I'm going to take that long shower anyway. I need that this morning. What do you say to those people who say, it's voluntary? What's the big deal?
I would say ask your kids. Your kids probably are more aware because my kids tell me what to do, what's the right thing to do. But I'll tell you, just remember, the longer shower you take, the water you waste, if you see water running on the street from your lawn, just remember that water could have been saved and stored for tomorrow, for a worse day. Water is life, water is economy. So I'm telling everyone, when they turn the faucet, when they turn the shower, when they water the lawn, just remember your actions today has a huge impact on what we're gonna look like tomorrow. We'll look worse for allocation, but we talked about it's gonna cost you more in the future if we go into this severe drought and we don't have the water. So what you do today is gonna help us for tomorrow. It will help you also in your bill for tomorrow. Remember, that water has value. Let's just protect it.
Are you looking at salt water?
Salt water, you talk about the ocean desal. We're looking at every option. We're starting the integrated resource plan. We already started, we're working on it, looking at the gap. Through our planning efforts, we're looking at the gap of water, and we're planning for the worst conditions, and we're looking at multiple sources of water. Everything is on the table. At the end of the day, what's the most effective, cost-effective, and feasible to do? But I'll tell you, it's multiple. It's conservation, local water supply that we're gonna generate, that means recycled water and possibly desal, storage, and interconnectivity, so we have flexibility of moving water around. All that is in place. We've done that already, but we need to do more of it. We need to double down on it.
Yesterday, when the U.S. declared the first water shortage on the Colorado River, how big of a deal is that? And just talk about your reaction to that happening. And also, you talk about half of our supply coming from the northern Sierras and the Colorado River. Where does the other half come from? And if you can touch on that.
I will answer the last part. The good thing is half our water comes from local water supplies. The investments we made in the work in Orange County, San Diego, stormwater capture, conservation, all that have helped us. 50% of the water is local. In Fullerton, for example, they cleaned up some of the groundwater that's contaminated with PFAS by building a treatment system to help continue using groundwater. All that has to be part of the solution to bring that together. So to me, we've done a lot of work, but more needs to be done. But I'll have Devin react to the declaration.
Thank you, Adele. So we did issue a press release yesterday when the declaration was announced. It was not unexpected. It is the result of what is really a 21-year drought on the Colorado River, with ups and downs during that drought period. But it's a highly managed system, and we have negotiated multiple times with the parties on the river, the 7 basin states and the federal government, to take management actions to stem the tide. We did that again back in 2019 with what was known as the Drought Contingency Plan. And so while that wasn't unexpected, it is a pretty significant announcement. And I'd really like to take the opportunity to introduce our Colorado River manager, Bill Hazenkamp, today. He's sitting here to the left. Maybe Bill can just offer some comments on to your point on how important that was for the system and the other parties that are on that system that share the river with us.
Yeah, Hazenkamp, H-A-S-E-N-C-A-M-P. Yeah, we've been working on the Colorado River with our partners in Arizona and Nevada to add water to Lake Mead over the last decade. And I think the shortage declaration really was, the silver lining was that it took this long for it to actually reach a shortage. We've had, as Devin said, a 20-year drought on the Colorado River, yet we've been able to work cooperatively to keep the lake propped up for all these years until finally these last 2 years the hydrology was just too much for us, and we did get this first ever shortage declaration. While the shortage itself isn't really that severe, the lower basin is prepared for it. It's more of a wake-up call about the projections of Lake Mead isn't going to stop going down. It's going to keep going down for the next year or two. And we have to really work together with our partners in the other 6 states and in Mexico to figure out ways to reduce the decline of Lake Mead.
Where do we get most of our water from?
So the question was, where do we get most of our water from? And the water portfolio for Southern California right now is roughly half water that's provided through Metropolitan's imported water system. That water comes from both the Colorado River and the State Water Project in Northern Sierras. Roughly the other half of water is from a multitude of local sources here in Southern California. A portion of it also comes through the Los Angeles aqueduct to the city of LA. But the largest component locally is actually groundwater pumping from a series of groundwater basins throughout Southern California. There's also some surface water capture where agencies have reservoirs that capture some local surface water runoff. We do have one significant ocean water desalination plant that was pioneered by the San Diego County Water Authority. It's Carlsbad desal facility. Another form of desalination that occurs is actually brackish water desalination. So there are a number of treatment plants that take salty groundwater and treat that groundwater so that it can be used. And then recycled water. We have more than 400,000 acre-feet of recycled water projects and production here in Southern California. So hopefully that gives you a sense of many of the different pieces of the puzzle that provide water supply to consumers here in Southern California.
Kevin, if I could ask a question for those that are online. From Haley Smith of the Los Angeles Times, did Metropolitan see a response to Governor Newsom's July call for residents to voluntarily conserve 15% of their water? Have you seen that in any of your demands?
So the question was about whether we saw an immediate response to Governor Newsom's call back in July for voluntary conservation. And I can tell you as a water wholesaler, it's very difficult for us to see that. We are multiple levels from the end consumer. However, our deliveries through the summertime thus far have been very moderate to our member agencies. So we think that that's a very good thing. And we know that the State Water Resources Control Board will be looking at the statistics for residential water use throughout the state, and we'll expect to see the response in those reports in the coming months and year.
There's a follow-up question. Are there, you've mentioned about the allocation that is the next step in our water supply drought management plan, but are there penalties for agencies, businesses, residents who are using excessive water now in Southern California?
So the question is about penalties that are in place, or are they in place for folks that might be wasting water in various ways right now. And we are calling for agencies and residents to take a look at the way they're using water, and commercial entities also, and see if they can save any water right now. The response that we're seeing from agencies throughout Southern California is varied. Some agencies have different supply pictures, and so they might take mandatory actions in response to this water supply alert. Other agencies might choose to take a lighter touch. It depends on their water supply picture locally. But to the question, I would expect to see a response from agencies throughout Southern California looking at their shortage contingency plans and taking the steps appropriate in those plans they defined. Those plans for everybody had to be submitted to the state in July of this year. So we're simply asking for agencies to take the step appropriate in their response plans.
Devin, can you clarify what you said about the Metropolitan being 1 month supply with Northern California water supplies this year, and then it could go to 0 next year? How serious is that? It sounds really serious.
So this question was about the state water project supplies and the low level of state water project supplies that we're seeing right now. I mentioned earlier that the supply that we're receiving this year is equivalent to 1 month's normal supply. And to give you a sense, we would typically receive somewhere between 1 million to 1.1 million acre feet of supply from the State Water Project in an average year. This year, we're receiving about 100,000 acre feet. So that's the comparison between this year and normal. And if we see a zero allocation in state water project supplies at the beginning of the year, we won't be surprised. The state has already told us that there are very dry conditions going into the new year, and we should expect the initial announcement for an allocation to be pretty low. We're prepared for that. We will be using stored water supplies to be able to make it through that period. We don't expect it to be a final allocation next year of zero. That would be unprecedented, and that would be unlike anything that we've ever seen. And that would be a condition that would warrant likely us taking another look at what level in our condition framework we are at. But the state has told us we should expect to start very, very low, and then as you see the rainfall snowpack conditions improve through the year, then they would change the allocation. And that's typical for what you see play out in a year.
Follow-up, what do those numbers mean? What percentage of our water supply is coming from there, Northern California?
This year, the demand for water from our agency, Metropolitan Water District, is roughly 1.75 million acre feet, to give you a sense. We're receiving 100,000 acre feet from the State Water Project. So you can see that the overwhelming majority of the water we're providing is coming from stored supplies and the Colorado River this year.
But also, this is a wake-up call for our legislators in Sacramento and DC to invest in us here, investing in Southern California, because that's going to help resolve a lot of the issues across our region. So we're working with our partners in Sacramento, the legislators in Sacramento and in DC, to invest in storage and recycled water, in building connectivity so we can move water around easily to meet the changes that we're seeing. So we're asking everyone to help. This is what we call, we're all in this together. Let's all make it happen, and we need to invest. And we are working very hard to make sure that we create resilient water supply for everyone. So when I assure everyone, we're working for them every single day.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you very much.